Well, hello and welcome, everyone. Thank you so much for joining me for another episode of the New Construction Marketing Podcast. I'm your host, Anya Chrysanthon, and I'm very excited to introduce my guest for today, Brett Steele with Zillow New Construction. I feel like Brett Steele is like Man of Steel, like it's like a Superman name, superhero, which you
Well, I
are,
appreciate
right? Zillow superhero.
try to be.
Yes. Well, welcome to the show. I'm so excited to have you on. And I can't believe that I've never had anyone from Zillow on.
Yeah, I'm excited to be here, and great to finally break that mold for you.
Yes. So, Brett, we like to kick things off by telling our listeners a little bit about who you are, what you do at Zillow, and your journey before Zillow, because I know we do have a lot in common.
Yeah. So I've been at Zillow here for 4 years, a little over 4 years, and prior to that, I was working. I'm out of the headquarters here in Seattle, and prior to that, I was actually working in Boston for a financial services company called Columbia Threadneedle Investments. My job was to wholesale mutual funds to private banks. Mm-hmm. So think of the ultra high net worth side of Bank of America is a company called US Trust. That was pretty much my primary client, working with them and trying to position our mutual funds and offerings in front of the portfolio managers who manage money for the rich and famous. I did that for about 7 or 8 years. And then really kind of just, you kind of know the industry as well, kind of burns you out. If that's not something that you want to do for the rest of your life, you have a shelf life there. And I quickly came upon my shelf life, wanted to get into an industry that I was very interested in. That had always been real estate. I was kind of following it on the side for years prior to that. And then I started looking into the industry and realized that Zillow is one of the best companies to work for. They were rated that time and time again by Fortune, by a ton of different publications. And so I just took a shot, and 4.5 years later, here I am.
Yes, here you are. I can totally relate as to why you changed the industry. So for those of you listening, know that I was actually in finance prior to getting into new home building as well. So, Brett, I did work as a wholesaler for Vanguard. So I sold ETFs to broker-dealer channel. For before that, I traveled all over US and I did in-person sales and presentations. But then when I had my boys, who are turning 10 years old this year, which is crazy to think, it kind of flipped my whole world upside down. I couldn't travel anymore and I had to take a desk job, and I was the wholesaler role. And I was in a role, I want to say maybe 2 or 3 years, and can honestly say I did not enjoy it at all. And it's a tough job. You're on the phone constantly, dialing and getting a lot of hangups. It's definitely a tough environment, especially back then when everyone was like Vanguard. Now it's like, okay, indexing, like everyone's gung ho on indexing, but back then it was like, oh, Vanguard, the enemy of the people. So they hang up on me all day long.
Hey, at least people knew who Vanguard was. Nobody had ever heard of my company.
Yes, I guess that's a good point. It's like either they know you, but you're not it's like, oh, you guys are anti-advisor, we're not doing business with you, or they don't know you. And I remember I was the second girl on the desk. It was me and the girl Julia, and it was the two of us and a bunch of guys, as I'm sure it was probably very similar setup. So it was very male dominated industry.
Yep.
And so obviously home building as well, but at least we have some more females on the sales side. So
yeah, definitely.
But yeah, just like you, I needed a change, and very, very happy that I did make that change. So
well, I'm glad we're both in this industry now.
Yeah. So lots in common, you and I, and you also have a young baby. Is that your first child?
Yeah, my first girl, Olivia, she's 9 months old now. And she's the best. She has been sleeping through the night since 3 months. So let me knock on wood there.
Yeah, right.
So yeah, she's been great for us.
Yes, amazing. Well, so Brad and I wanted to talk today a little bit about Zillow report. Obviously, every single year, Zillow has been coming out with this new construction report, which, if you can give us a little bit of a background on how do you do the survey, like how many people do you survey? Is it only new construction, or do you survey like kind of all the buyers in the market? Like, what does that look like?
Yeah, so it's we've been doing it now for I think 3 or 4 years now, and a couple of years back we decided that we actually wanted one just for new construction. So there is a broader Zillow report that comes out every year that looks at the rental side, the mortgage side, the resale side. But 2 or 3 years ago, we realized that we wanted one just for the new construction side of the business. So we go through thousands of different buyers over a 3-week period and survey them. This last one was done April through May of 2020, which if we, it seems like forever ago, but if we remember when that was, it was kind of the very beginning of the pandemic. Right at the very beginning of a lot of state shutdown orders, depending on which state that our listeners are watching from, you could have been sidelined. You could have been basically furloughed for months at a time, or a lot of the states were considered essential, and they were, in just as difficult of a situation because they had to realize very quickly, how do we sell in this environment? So that's kind of the snapshot in time when we started surveying these new construction buyers. And the whole reason for doing this report is to try and make sure that we understand what buyers' expectations and needs are in the current market environment. It's interesting doing this and going through this report now because obviously things have changed. A lot has changed since that time frame, but it still gives us an idea of where the trends were heading. And when we finally get a normalization of inventory and things calm down a bit here, we'll know a pretty good idea of what our landscape is when the dust settles.
Yeah, I'll be curious to see what that looks like for May of 2021 going. It's got to be a really, really interesting story there.
Yeah.
So Brett, I think obviously you guys are known as the dominant market force for people looking for homes. And with new construction offering, like how old is the new construction offering? Because obviously you've entered the market as a concentrated on resales.
Yeah, so we've had our promoted community side of the new construction platform for about 6 or 7 years now. Was started as very basic display ads on the early Zillow that looked like it was built from a high school student, to today where we have over 1,500 partners, tens of thousands of communities on the platform, and really it's just grown into this robust platform for new construction builders. So promoted communities is our flagship product. And then we have some add-on things that are built that are additional services on top of it, such as our Boost product. And then a whole bunch of value add services are actually built into the promoted communities product as well, such as tour booking, listing connect, ratings and reviews, a bunch of other things.
So let's dive into some of this stuff, because I think a lot of builders listening, they may not be aware of just the depth of the offerings that you guys have with new construction side. And I think one thing for me was when I was selling new construction, just a couple of years ago, I paid really close attention to my Zillow listings. Because I knew that there was almost like a science to the way you list on Zillow. And, I could always see I don't typically consider myself like a data-driven person, but I think one great thing about Zillow was that they could tell me like how many views a particular listing is getting, right? And I could tell like, okay, this listing is really doing great compared to this listing, and like what's different about it, and how can I make sure that I'm getting as many eyeballs on it as possible. So before we get into some of the trends, etc., can you talk to us a little bit about kind of the biggest opportunities that you see people that are just like missing out, maybe as simple as, sending like, updating your photos on a weekly basis or something like that. Like, what really moves the dial when it comes to listing side on Zillow?
Yeah, and it's a great thing to bring up. So thanks for the opportunity. For the past couple of years, we've been telling builders content, content, content. Content is king, especially on Zillow. You probably saw the SNL skit of people talking, like going through like Zillow is the new like thing to do late at night, and you're just like bored out of your mind. When you're in your 30s, you go on Zillow for fun now. That Zillow surfing culture is definitely there. And content is the reason for that. People want to see as many pictures as possible and all of that. We've gotten pretty good at the content side, for at least the photos and even some of the plan side. The biggest opportunity in my mind right now is bulking up the plan side of things. So we've gotten really good at selling spec homes because we have the video walkthroughs, we have some of the 3D tours, and we have a lot of the photos. Where we have a huge opportunity is on the plan side and the community side. So when I say that, when you list through the MLS, you really just have your specific spec listing there. When you go through Zillow, you also get a community detail page, and a lot of builders overlook that. And I don't think that's the right thing to do. I think we have a huge opportunity to invest in that community detail page. A lot of buyers right now are living in metro areas where they can't afford a home right in that metro, but they could in a different metro. So the latest number I saw was 2 million renters can afford a home in a different metro, but not their current metro. So for example, I live here in Seattle. If I were renting, I might not be able to buy a home here in Seattle, but I might be able to buy one in Boise, or I might be able to buy one in Austin. So there's this huge built up demand if you combine the remote work with this possibility of being able to afford in a different metro, of people looking to buy outside. And where this all kind of comes together is if you are a buyer looking at other areas, if you see the MLS listing, it might say like close to I-5. And if you're not from that area, you don't know much about what that means for you. So, on the community detail page, you really have an opportunity to say close to I-5, which is, the best area to connect you with these 5 main hotspots, or, local bars all within certain walking distance, or, really bulk up that detail page to let people know if they're not from that area, which most buyers aren't from that specific area that they're looking in. Give them an idea of what it means to live there. Where are their closest shopping centers? Where are their closest universities or the schools? Don't just rely on the Zillow data that automatically pulls for some of that information. You always hear people talk about the walk score or the commuting score or anything like that. Don't rely on that. Kind of bulk out that community side to really let people know what it would feel like if they were to live in that community or that neighborhood.
Mm-hmm. Such a great point. Yeah, I think one thing that we're going to see going forward is that people are no longer moving just across town. They're moving literally across country.
Yeah.
And I mean, I don't know about you, Brad, but like with my husband and I, we're constantly having conversations like, oh, should we move to Alabama? Should we move to that? Like, like to Vermont, it's like all bets are off now, right? Like everyone's working from home, and it's like, well, if we're not tied down to this location, like, is this really where we want to be? Or, do we want to sell our super expensive house and move somewhere where it's way more affordable and, live large, so to speak?
Yeah.
So, and I think a lot of people are having those same thoughts and conversations, because I really think that, we're not going back to business as usual as far as working from the office. I'm sure a lot of companies are going to go back to working from the office in some capacity, but even with Google recently, when they announced going back, and then it's kind of like retracted back to like, oh, you can decide whether you want to come back or not. And I think the same thing it's going to be with most companies if they want to be competitive, because they're just going to lose talent if they're not being flexible like that. So yeah, so think about as a sales representative, your discovery process with your prospect, it always starts from the bigger to smaller. So are you familiar with this area? Let me tell you about what's going on here. So I think when you're thinking about that community page, you can really write it out as like a story, right? Like what would be important to somebody living in this neighborhood, like you said, from shops to attractions, and of course, keep in mind who is your ideal demographic and like what would be important to them. So mentioning things like maybe there's like a hot yoga nearby,
Yeah.
and a park, a microbrewery, things like that, because we all know, those millennials, that certainly is important to them. And speaking of millennials, do you have what's the latest number on how many buyers are millennials now?
Yeah, so 7 of 10 millennials are first-time buyers. The millennial cohort in the country is now 70 million strong, and that makes up about 39% of all new construction buyers. So if you are not currently selling to a millennial, you will be within the next 5 years.
Wait, did you say 79% of new construction buyers are millennials?
39.
39.
39.
Okay. I was like, wait.
No,
okay.
that'd be way too much.
Okay. 39.
And if they're builders looking to try and get inspiration for those community detail pages, go to Airbnb. The Airbnb hosts do a really good job of not assuming that anybody knows the area and letting people realize, oh, you're a short walk from this. 5 minutes down the road is this park. Like you mentioned, like the hot yoga. Steal from Airbnb. You don't have to reinvent the wheel, but it gives you an idea of that's the perspective people are looking for when they're looking at those community detail pages.
Yes. And remember, when people buy new home, they're not just buying a home, they're buying new community. And
Right.
so communities are super important to people and where we live. So that's definitely a huge opportunity for you to entice your potential buyers with the community. So for sure, that's a big one.
Yeah.
Anything else that you feel people are really missing?
Yeah, I mean, there are 3 stats that kind of stuck out from the community side. 88% of buyers felt that the neighborhood being safe was very important to them, which it's amazing that that's not 100%, but 88%, that's probably one of the higher numbers of the entire survey. 65% wanted the neighborhood to be walkable. So if it is, make sure that you call that out. And if the developer has put in a lot of effort to make sure that feels that way, highlight it because it's clearly important to buyers. 42% say that school district was very important to them. So we hear that from the agent side over and over again, that school district is everything. But on the new construction side, that's not what the data tells us. So if you're emphasizing that over everything else, you might want to shift a little bit away from that and talk about the other aspects of the community.
For sure. Yeah. Especially now with the homeschooling options available, I'll be curious to see what percentage of people actually decide to continue to homeschool their kids. Because I bet you it's going to be a pretty high percentage. I know in my school district, they're constantly surveying parents to see, what's happening next year. Are we going back at full capacity or what? And I know that in my school district, there's, surprisingly large number of people that said like we're gonna just homeschool them. And I wonder if that number is going to be just kind of like indefinitely, right? Because a lot of kids these days are, with the whole bullying and everything else, like, they prefer to just be online and get their stuff done. And just like us, they're working from home. So so for sure. So school district may not even be that big of a deal anymore to people. So that's a great point. And then as far as safety, and I think walkability really ties into that a lot of times, because if you feel the community is not safe, a lot of times I don't know, walkability is not going to be the factor there.
Right.
but I forgot when I was reading this, and may have been a previous Zillow report that said like the front door, how important the front door is when it comes to buyer experience. Like if you have like a really flimsy front door, or like it's not substantial, or it like feels like it could be easily broken,
Yeah.
um, that is like the first impression. So they were talking about how important it is to have like a substantial front door greeting you. So on your model home, that's something to think about, because off the bat, like when you see that substantial front door, it gives you that feeling of safety. And as as you said, 88% of people are certainly looking for that safety, the safe haven, the home. So
Yeah. Invest in front doors.
yes, exactly. Awesome. Okay, so let's see. So we talked about the millennials are buying the homes, and safety is important, walkability is important, schools are not as important anymore.
Mhm.
What other trends that you saw in the report that really jumped out at you, or was there anything surprising to you?
Yeah, I mean, the percent of buyers who are only interested in new construction is going up. So the previous year was 32%. This year it was 40%. Um, it's really cool to see that, because that kind of aligns with the shortage of inventory that we started seeing in Q4 of 2019. And the market share of new construction has never been higher as a percent of the overall inventory in the US. So what that means is new construction as an industry has a really good opportunity to steal market share from resale. And that's something that we've been trying to do here at Zillow to try and help the new construction industry since day one. That's the whole reason for this platform. Um, so there's this huge opportunity to steal this market share. It's not going to last forever. I know builders are kind of saying like, oh, when will this be over? This is actually a really good time for us. We just need to make sure that we're pricing things the right way and getting our supply chains in order. But in terms of an opportunity, that's probably the biggest opportunity in front of us right now. Um, and that's again the whole reason why we do this report. The timing also has gotten way shorter. So the previous year, it took about 3 months to buy a home.
Mm-hmm.
For 2020, it was 2 months. I would be amazed if it wasn't down to 1 month for 2021.
If it's
So
not
that's
one day
yeah.
for some people, right?
Yeah, and it's crazy because you have to have all of your ducks in a row when you finally decide to start looking for a home. We have multiple people just here on the new construction team at Zillow in Seattle that are in the home search right now, and it's crazy out there. Pretty much everything that they end up putting an offer in on is multiple offers. And we've heard some of the stories of what's happening on the builder side as well. Some builders going out to, originally writing contracts up to 12 months out, and now realizing like, okay, no more contracts until we know until the home is actually sold or completed, because we don't know what the price of it is going to be. You posted, I think last week or the week before, of what does 50,000 in lumber get you the previous year versus this
Crazy.
year,
Yeah.
10 and a half homes versus 2 1/10 of a home or something like that.
Yeah. I love
So
it.
it's nuts out there.
Yeah, for sure. And speaking of timing and all the craziness, like I think a lot of people right now think like, oh, it's such a great time to be a realtor right now. The housing market is so hot, and like all those new realtors flooding the market. And it's like, no, it's really terrible time to be a realtor. I've
Yeah.
been watching a lot of my friends who are realtors do like funny gifts where it's like, I'm passed out on the bed. Like this is how the housing market affecting your local realtor.
Yeah.
I can't even imagine. I mean, you're running around with these buyers and trying to get showings, and by the end of the day, it's like, okay, submit your offer, and it's gone. And you're writing so many different offers, and yeah, it's definitely really really hard time to be in the market. I'm definitely grateful that we bought our house when we bought our house, and
Same.
we're set for now. So one question I have is, we've all heard that interesting statistic from, like, I want to say it was like a couple of years ago, that in the beginning of the buying process, up to, I want to say it was like 64% of all buyers said that they would consider new construction, and
Mhm.
only, I want to say, like, what is it, 9% or 11% actually bought new construction. Do
Mhm.
you have any update on that number?
I
For
don't have that specific number. We do know that it's trending up because of the imbalance of the market right now.
Mhm.
But that's one I'll have to get back to you on because I'm also curious about that. We kind of put that stat out over and over again a couple of years ago. But yeah, I'll get back to you on that one because that one's definitely interesting to us.
Yes, for sure. It's I know that's definitely been talked about a lot.
Yeah.
And yeah, I think for new construction, we're definitely in exciting time right now where we do have such a great opportunity to gain market share and take that from used homes.
Hmm.
But we obviously have some challenges, as you mentioned, that we have to overcome as far as lumber pricing and a lot of other things. So I think as an industry, we just have to look at alternatives at this point. And I know I've been really getting excited about, the 3D printed homes and, just alternative methods because it's like thinking back to Henry Ford when he built the first car. It's like, if people would have asked them like what we want is like a faster horse, right?
Right.
And not thinking, not thinking like there's a different solution. So I think we're kind of like at this inflection point right now where we're thinking maybe lumber because that's what we've been used to is lumber. But I think long term lumber may not even be the real solution, like as far as sustainability and everything else. I think it may be the alternative materials that are going to be much stronger and they're going to be able to withstand the forces of nature as we mess with mother nature and now we're getting crazy weather.
Yeah.
So we're going to have to definitely figure it out as an industry.
Yeah,
um,
it's definitely going to be interesting because this is when industries evolve the most, right? Is when there's a ton of pressure on them. They're kind of forced to. And in the home building industry, we've done the same thing for ever, really. It's one of the industries that hasn't been able to evolve and catch up with the growing needs of society. So it's very interesting to see how we as an industry are going to evolve, whether that's more of the we're hearing more of the kind of compartmentalized homes being built offsite and then being shipped there. You can use different materials in that situation. It will be very interesting to see if there's some sort of replacement for lumber, or at least something kind of like lumber light to use elsewhere in the house. Yeah, I'm very excited to see what the next 5 years of this industry look like, because I think now is, like you said, an inflection point for us.
yes, absolutely. All right, cool. So as we wrap up this podcast, is there anything else that when you think about specifically with your offerings for new construction and the trends that you've seen, is there like a couple of things that you would say? Obviously, we talked about the communities,
Mhm.
that being important, but anything like even pictures, videos, 3D tours, like anything that we could be doing better as builders to really make our listings stand out from the competition?
Yeah, I mean the 3D tours and the video walkthroughs. If you have any opportunity to do, please do both of them. I bought my house with a video walkthrough and 3D tour that got attached to it after the photos went up. The photos itself were garbage, to be honest with you. There were only about 15 of them in a home that's 2,000 square feet, which doesn't really give you a good sense of the space. After the 3D tour and the video walkthrough were uploaded, then I was like, oh wow, they completely forgot to take pictures of this entire area, and that what made me, be able to put an offer in without actually seeing it, actually, because I was in, I think, PCBC. Um, but really, it's about streamlining for the buyer. Any way that you can do that. One of the main stats that came out that was a little bit worrisome for our industry is 80% of new construction buyers find some part of the process challenging, and that's not a number you really want to hear when you're trying to make things easy on the buyer. But it's also a lot of opportunity for us. So look for ways that you can streamline education, look for ways that you can streamline the actual process, be more transparent with your buyers. That's really what they're looking for. They're looking for transparency in order to gain confidence, and confident buyers are good for everybody. because they are willing to take a little bit bigger risks. They're willing to, kind of work with you a little bit more as long as they feel confident about you as a builder. So really, it's that education for the buyer that is really going to pay dividends in the future.
For sure. And especially as we get into the shrinking time frame to buy a home, the more confident the buyer feels going into the process, the faster they'll be able to make that decision. So just help them by being as transparent as possible. And that's where I know I've been like beating the dead horse for ages now, talking about the pricing. Like, you gotta show the pricing, the option pricing. You have to show your buyers, what they're buying. You can't expect somebody to make a decision to buy the most expensive thing that they're going to spend their money on and not tell them what it's actually going to cost them in the end. It may have worked with baby boomers back in the day, but now the millennials, like, they're a completely different breed, and it just doesn't work. So definitely and make sure you are transparent. And then one thing I saw that I was surprised by was the realtors. So can you talk about the realtor stats?
Yeah, I mean, there's the realtors are not going away by any means, and that's not something that Zillow is anticipating. And it's not something that Zillow wants to happen by any way, shape, or form. One of the main stats that came out of this was, 51% of buyers who are working with an agent want their agent to handle all of the communication with the builder, and 90% want their agent to handle some or all of the communication. So there are a few stats that kind of build up to that. One of them being that I think the number is something like 60% of buyers want to be, or 64% of buyers want to be able to schedule their or unlock the home with just their smartphone and not have a sales agent there. And 59% want to schedule their listings online and not have to go through an agent to do that. So you might see less interaction with an agent on the upfront side of things, but once they are ready to make an offer and work with somebody, overwhelmingly, they want to have their hand held. And they need somebody in their corner, especially millennials, how we are. You want somebody in your corner to make sure that you know what's happening at every step of the way. And that's why agents are going to, in my opinion, the ones that are working with builders at least, are going to evolve their services to essentially say, listen, I'm going to handle all of this. And this is how transparent we're going to be. I'm going to find out exactly how this builder works, what we can expect. I will communicate all of that for you. All you have to do is, pay attention to what I'm saying. Don't worry about the builder. I'll handle everything there. Those are the agents that are going to thrive in this industry, are the ones who understand the builders through and through. The builders who are going to succeed are the ones who work well with agents. So they're doing lunch and learns to reach out to prospective or the top agents in their area and saying, hey, if you want to learn about doing business with us, come to this lunch and learn. Find out what we're all about, find out what it means to buy a Steele builder's home. And that'll give agents a little bit more confidence of bringing potential buyers to you there too. So there's a huge opportunity there on the agent side as well.
Yeah, it's so interesting how like they want that independence to go tour on their own and do all those things on their own. But then once they're actually ready, they want the agent. And I guess, it speaks to how independent millennials are. And then maybe, we do need that like buffer when it comes to speaking to, that confrontation. Like I think a lot of millennials don't like that direct confrontation maybe or something. So that's where the realtor comes in as a buffer. So that's really interesting to see. And I think that's important that builders hear this, because right now, so many builders are having conversations about cutting realtors out of transaction completely. I know a lot of places, especially in really hot markets like Texas and Florida, they're talking about either not doing any deals with realtors or they're cutting their commissions significantly. And, you just got to think long term how that's going to affect your business, because, I think there's definitely, to your point, realtor role is going to evolve. but they're going to be here to stay, at least for, you know, the near future. And you got to figure out a way to have a good working relationship with the agents. And I always like to think about agents as like an influencer in our industry, right? Like
Mhm.
you want to figure out like who is that agent, the rock star, the superstar, the mayor of the town in your town, who, you know, knows everyone, that everyone knows, their faces everywhere, they're on all social media, they're, you know, all over the place, they have all the buyers, they're in the know. Because, you know, buyers and sellers look to them, they
Yeah.
look to them as an expert, they look to them as, again, quote unquote influencer. And so if you can partner with somebody like that, then they're going to be the advocate, the champion for your brand. And that's a great opportunity right there. So I think it's definitely not to be overlooked, because I would have thought very different based on
Mhm.
like what's happening right now. And it's definitely very eye opening. So
Yeah. And I mean, steal from what we used to do in the financial services industry, right? We used to go in market to meet with financial advisors and teach them about ERISA, which is like the 401k and 503, 503B. You know better than I do.
403B.
403B, yeah. Like we used to teach about these plans and everything. Do that as a builder, do that for the top agents. Do you have to work with every agent? That's on you. But at the very least, you want to work with, like you said, those influencers, those top 10 to 25% of the agents in your area, and make sure they understand what value you're bringing as a builder. Because don't forget the last 25 years, you've relied on builders to build this business. So again, I like what you said, invest in the long term. That's absolutely the right way to think about this.
Yes. Well, Brett, thank you so much for being on today. I really enjoyed our conversation. Again, I'm so happy that we made this happen. It's been 3 years of podcasting and no Zillow. So, so I feel like this, you know, broke a barrier. So,
I'm glad to be here. Thank you very much for having us.
yes. And Brett, if somebody wants to connect with you, ask you some more questions, is there a place where you usually hang out online? What's the best way to connect with you? Or are you speaking somewhere? Like, where can we see you?
Yeah, LinkedIn is the best way. So you and I are connected, so they can find us either way there. You can always send a note to your Zillow rep, and we can connect there. And otherwise, yeah, and probably LinkedIn is the best way to reach me.
Gotcha, gotcha. Are you traveling at all this year?
We're still awaiting terms of what Zillow is going to allow. We think it'll start opening up like around Q4. But again, it's, are people comfortable with us traveling? It seems like most of our partners are, willing to have us, especially if we've been vaccinated. So we'll see. I won't say yes or no for sure, but it looks like we will start getting out there, which I'm really excited about.
Yes, yes, so am I. So, all right, cool. Well, hopefully we'll get to see each other in person in the near
Yeah.
future. And you guys, I'm gonna put up a poll on social media. Don't look up Brett and tell me, do you think he's got a beard? Yes or no? You know, when you listen to somebody and you have like a clear picture in your mind what they look like. So I'm gonna put up a poll and see how many people think you have a beard, yes or no. So I'd be very curious to see that.
Me too.
Well, Brett, thanks so much for being on today, and I will talk to you very soon.
Thank you very much.
Bye.
Take care.